Well, hello everyone. I see that it's 1 p.m. Central, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome if you are new to CSTP conference calls or if you are one of our familiar faces. So glad that you all are here. I have just a few links that I'm going to pop in our chat here for you all to check out. It's just our kind of standard uh, contact information form and submission form if you are not on our mailing list and would like to be, or if you'd like to submit something for our quarterly newsletter or present at one of our future conference calls like this one. So if you have information that you want to share, you can go ahead and fill out that form. And then the last parts of it are our two archives, our conference call archive and that newsletter archive, and then some information on Thrive. But I won't take up too much of your time because we have a really great presentation for today. And so I really want to make sure that I leave some time for our presenters. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you have any technical difficulties, you can always send me a private message and I can troubleshoot that with you all. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rhonda and Hannah to take our presentation away.
Thank you, Jenny. We'll just take a minute to get our PowerPoint up and then we'll get started.
All right, can everyone see the Partners in Prevention screen? Perfect.
Okay, so we are so excited to be able to be here today and present with you. We're coworkers with Jenny, so we're thank you, Jenny, for inviting us to be on here. And today we're going to be talking about finding those partners in prevention and making connections and specifically sharing about our teen dating violence awareness and program and how we've collaborated with child support to make this a really successful program for youth. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Rhonda Evans, and I'm a project coordinator with with PILE. We just changed our name, and ADMYRE, and I oversee the 7th through 12th grade outreach for the ADMYRE program specifically.
And my name is Hannah Urich, and I am a project coordinator for PILE and ADMYRE as well. And I oversee our college curriculum for the ADMYRE program. And so to start off today, we just wanted to do a quick poll question to kind of see what all of our connection is with the problem of dating violence. So you can answer yes or no to this question. And just thinking about if you or someone you know has been impacted by dating violence. So whether it's a friend, a family member, maybe a client that you've worked with within child support, but just gauging to see where you guys are all at with this. All right, we'll give a couple more seconds. Okay, it looks like most people have submitted their response. And for our results, we had about 82% have had some sort of connection with the issue of dating violence. So we know that this is something that's very prevalent in our society. And one thing we know is that it's especially prevalent when we talk about teen relationships as well. So some statistics to share is that 2 out of 3 teens will experience some form of teen dating violence. And this is kind of a broader definition of dating violence to include things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, and emotional abuse. And when we go into a classroom, we kind of point out like in a room of 30 students, that's about 20 students. So just keeping in mind that a lot of people have been impacted by this. And then one thing we know is that women aged 16 to 24 are almost 3 times as likely to experience violent relationships. So that includes that teen age as well as that emerging adult age. And then another statistic is that 57% of college students say it's difficult to identify abuse. So having gone through at least 12 years of formal education, this is something that college students are still not able to identify and kind of find it difficult to identify. So just knowing that this issue is common, we also wanted to give a content warning for today. We are going to be talking about some sensitive issues with dating violence. So if at any point you need to take a moment to take care of yourself, please do that. And also know that there are resources available for you as well. So these statistics also kind of show why we're looking to provide this programming for teens. We really want to reach them at a younger age, and just knowing that there are future impacts of teen dating violence relationships. So we know that adult survivors of teen dating violence might experience challenges with establishing intimacy with a partner. They might have struggles with their physical health, becoming a positive member of society, maybe even developing a personal value system, establishing an adult identity, because a lot of these relationships are happening at crucial points when they're kind of figuring out who they are and who they want to be as teens. And then we also know that this can lead to a higher likelihood of abusive, intimate relationships in adulthood. And this is something you might have observed with your clients in child support. We know that 40% of custodial parents have experienced domestic violence with the other parent. So really just trying to reach them at a younger age to kind of prevent some of these things happening in the future.
Okay, so you may be wondering what's the connection, and I want to share the unique story that we have here in Iowa. We've had a longstanding relationship between Iowa State University and the Iowa Child Support Services, back all the way back to the early 90s. And it's a very unique partnership between state government and higher education. But we both have the same goal of providing those holistic services to young people and newly forming families in Iowa so that they thrive. And one thing our team focuses on is thinking of innovative ways to prevent domestic violence in families, and specifically dating violence with regards to youth. So a number of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, one of my coworkers discovered the program In Their Shoes that is put out by the Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And go ahead and pop in the chat like a yes, or if you've ever heard of that program, or maybe used that program, or been a part of it. It's called In Their Shoes. And it's a specific, yes, thank you, Wilder. Oh, I'm so excited to see that so many of you have heard of that program and used it. It is a very wonderful program, and it consists of a simulation where students are introduced to teen dating violence stories through a simulation. And we used that for quite a while. We started developing a debrief that went with it. Thank you everyone for sharing. And then as time went by, we noticed that there wasn't as much technology abuse addressed in those stories because they had been created a while ago. And so we actually had been using pre and post surveys within their shoes. And we went and talked to the Washington State Coalition and asked if we could update their stories and add some more technology to them. And they said, we love what you're doing, but we can't change the program. But you are welcome to create your own program and kind of similar to In Their Shoes. So they gave us their blessing. That is how the idea of ADMYRE was born. And so I would say Iowa State University, we kind of took the project on ourselves to create those stories. They're all based on true stories. But all the way through, Iowa Child Support was very supportive of us, reviewing our materials and giving us guidance. So back in 2022, we launched what is called, we call the ADMYRE program, which stands for Advocating for My Relationships. And it's, we continue to evaluate that program and improve it over time. We're going to spend some time today showing you what that actually looks like. And I bet you'll probably see some similarities as we go through the program if you've participated or seen in their shoes. We were recently awarded 3 awards. The 2025 NSCEA Award for Innovative Partnership and Collaboration, the WCSEC Award for Working Together. Those were both related to that partnership that Iowa State has with Iowa Child Support Services. And then Iowa State recognized us as the Youth Program of the Year for keeping youth safe and also promoting dating violence prevention.
All right, so just kind of talking about how ADMYRE compares to current programming. So as we said before, with that 57% statistic of college students not really being able to identify dating violence, one thing we know is that in some schools, dating violence isn't addressed and the materials might be outdated or presented in a lecture-based format that doesn't really resonate with younger audiences. So I'll give an example from my high school. This was about 5 years ago. We watched a video about a pretty severe case of dating violence and didn't really have any follow-up on what are those signs that we have to look out for and what can we do about it. So we really try to address this by creating an applicable and engaging activity for youth to go through, which we're going to talk a lot more about next. And then in addition to that, our program is evidence informed. So as Rhonda mentioned, we have our students take post and pre-surveys, and we do yearly evaluations to ensure that our program stays relevant with the times and the situations that are happening in teen relationships. And we also want to make it meaningful for teens as well. I think you're muted, Rhonda.
Thank you, Hannah. So what is ADMYRE? Well, as I mentioned before, it was created by our team, supported and reviewed by the Iowa Child Support Services community, but we also invited the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence experts to give feedback on our materials to ensure that they fit with reality. Although all the stories are based on actual true stories of interviews with people or news stories, we wanted just to make sure that we had adapted them appropriately for the younger audiences. So I'll start. I wanted to talk a little bit about our methodology. We're very intentional about that. When we come in front of a classroom, these youth are asking us, why should I listen to you? So we want to start off by capturing their attention and hooking them at the heart level, as we say around here. And so that is, we start out with a statistic, but then we move right into the simulation part and we get them up and moving around. They're engaging in these stories as if they were actually in the story and making decisions. And we know there's power in telling stories, so that's why we start with that. Another unique aspect to our program is that it's facilitated with our lead staff and trained college student facilitators. So having this information from people just a few years older than them and having that cool factor being, oh, they're college students, really helps the students listen, connect with, and relate to the content of the program. And then, as Hannah mentioned, with that evidence-informed background, our surveys have shown that 95% of our participants have a positive experience with our program and activities and facilitators. So we feel like we're really meeting a need out there. And next, I wanted to try to give you a feeling of being in the simulation. So we're going to watch just a short video, some video clips of actual simulations. So First, participants step in the shoes of the survivor or victim's journeys, and they move between stations representing in each story how dating violence impacts friends, family, and the community. These stories reflect various dating violence experiences, including stalking, sexual assault, and digital abuse. But then following the story simulation, students engage in debrief activities designed to build awareness and vocabulary to identify and name those unhealthy behaviors. We want youth to know how to access resources for themselves and their peers and to be advocates for themselves and others. The program goes beyond just sharing information about the topic to connecting students with actionable steps they can do to prevent or address dating violence in their own lives. And we're going to do a deep dive into those debrief activities coming right up.
All right, so starting to talk about the power of storytelling. So a lot of times students are given these statistics like we shared in the beginning, and it can be easy for them to think, well, that doesn't happen here. That's not something that's happening in my community if it's something that they've never personally experienced. So hearing the true stories of dating violence helps connect students to the reality that it does happen, and it also helps them build empathy with those characters as they're actually in the shoes of the person and trying to make decisions to help them as well. The stories exemplify our macro to micro learning style as a part of our methodology. So through the stories, the students are able to learn about dating violence without having to share about their own personal experiences. And they can also see a lot of the subtle signs and the impacts of dating violence that the characters had faced. Another interesting things about the story is that it shares both the survivor perspective, but also the person causing harm perspective. And this is especially important for teens because some of them might relate more to the victim slash survivor perspective, but some of them might relate more to the person causing harm. So if they're seeing this perspective and realizing that it's something that's negatively affecting somebody else, we hope that encourages them to think about how they can have better and healthier behaviors in their relationships as well. And then a little bit more on the stories. We have 4 middle school stories, 6 high school stories, and 8 college stories. So these are some pictures of the characters that we use for the story. And they're all based on true events, as Rhonda had mentioned. And they also depict some unique situations, but common situations that happen. So we talk about economic abuse, especially in those college relationships where couples might be living together. How does that impact their ability to leave an unhealthy relationship? We talk about cultural and spiritual abuse and how somebody might use that against another person to cause harm. We talk about how sometimes children in a relationship are used to manipulate someone into staying and kind of how they navigate that. We have a story that shows an unsupportive family. So how that character was able to get support when the people closest to them didn't really understand the situation or how to help them. And then we also show some different things with the legal system, how they might have helped or hurt in different situations. And we also have a child support connection in one of our stories. So the top right corner is the story of Adam. And in his story, he establishes paternity, which allows him to get custody of his child as they're navigating the legal system when his partner was causing harm in that situation. So really just showing these unique different things that can happen in relationships and bringing awareness to that.
Okay, next, I want you to put on your student hat and pretend like you are a high schooler again. And what we do to start the program is we read these story cards to them. And so I'm going to read the story card. We're going to hear from Kiana first and then Jeremiah. And I want you to be popping in the chat anything that you think looks like could be a red flag in this story. But this is how the story starts out, setting up the two characters. Hi, I'm Kiana. I'm a sophomore in high school. I bounce back and forth between my mom and dad's house pretty frequently. It can be a bit stressful at times, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love my family and getting to spend time with my parents and sisters. 2 months ago, I started dating Jeremiah. we met after a football game he was playing in and won. He can be a bit hot-headed, but I know that he cares about me. He always takes me on fancy dates and spoils me with presents. We text a lot and try to spend as much time together as we can. So go ahead, anything that you're seeing in there, put that in the chat, any red flags. We're going to go ahead and flip the card and read Jeremiah's. Hot-headed, love bombing. Yep, constantly giving her gifts. Very good. Excellent. A little bit of a temper. Okay, so let's hear Jeremiah's perspective. It's my junior year, which means I have to take my football games seriously if I'm going to get a scholarship to get into college. When I'm not playing football, I'm spending time with Kiana. When I'm not spending time with Kiana, I'm texting Kiana. She is my favorite person, and quite honestly, the only person I want to hang out with. I hate when she has other plans. I get so bored. So any new red flags that you see potentially? Isolating, only spending time with her, only texting her, possessive, yes. Dependent and wants possession. Yes, you guys hit it right on the head. So we on the other side of this, we would flip it back over and say, okay, we're going to invite Jeremiah over for dinner, and we're going to go to this home station. So there's 12 different stations set up around the room. And so our group would all walk over there and read that card and then go to the other stations. And this story, unfortunately, ends in the death of Kiana. And so the last card on this story will lead to a funeral home. And there's kind of a picture there of what we set up in the room. We kind of put it off to the side so students can't see that when they come in. We give them a few moments to just kind of reflect on her life, the life that was lost, and then we go back to the table and start answering some questions about the story, and that kicks off our debrief session. Then in the debrief, after each group has answered their questions, we turn and focus actually on the story of Kiana, which is why we chose that today. And we show a video. First, we show her actual photo and tell the students that her real name was Jolie Musa. And we show a little news clip and an interview with her mom and twin sister about what they wish they had known at the time. And so this is another time where we're trying to really hook them at the heart and get them to understand that this is real. This actually happens in real life. So that's just kind of a little kickoff for how the program starts.
Since the stories are relatable and can be very personal for students, another connection that we have with the Iowa Coalition Against Domestic Violence is that we invite the local advocates to be present during our presentations. And this has become a really good connection for us, because if a student were to have some sort of reaction from the stories, maybe it relates to something that they're experiencing or a friend is experiencing, they have that resource right there for them to talk to. And it also helps us as facilitators and table leaders, because we know we're not experts on this issue. And so we really just want to connect them to the people that can help them the most. And advocates provide free, confidential, and voluntary services for teens. So they have someone confidential right there that they can talk to. And then just a story that we heard from one of our advocates in one of our programs. We had a student who was going through the story, kind of tearing up as she was reading the story. And at the end of the presentation, she started talking to one of our table leaders and kind of disclosing that this was something that had happened to her. And so our table leader was able to introduce them to the local advocate, and they actually spent quite a bit of time after the presentation just talking through that situation and really getting her the help that she needed. So it was just really positive to see that we were able to provide that resource right there at that presentation. So definitely would recommend connecting with your local coalition and just inviting them, because it helps both programs, just putting a face to that resource and showing that they aren't scary people to talk to. They're really just here to help you. So
Yes, and just to continue a little bit of that story, with the advocate that we speak with a lot, she shared that she's noticed that these students, like when they come and talk to her during or after the program, or even sometimes she will see them later at a hospital or police station giving a police report, that they just have an awareness and a comfort level that they wouldn't have had before going through this program of being able to use words and phrases like emotional abuse or gaslighting or intimidation. We have other school counselors have told us the same thing. They see that when their students go through this program, it really it gives them powerful tools with that vocabulary to even recognize in their own life and then like give it a name. And so that's why the next activity is we talk about these power and control wheels and ask them to identify what were some of those unhealthy characteristics that they saw in the story. And we kind of describe the power and control wheel. The teen version, we also have them choose on this spectrum of healthy to unhealthy to dangerous, where they think that character story would fall, where the character would place themselves in the story, and just talk about how it can quickly go from unhealthy to dangerous.
yeah, and then for college, we use the adult power and control wheel. They have some different scenarios that might be a little bit more applicable to college students. And what I really like about the teen wheel is that those words are like understandable for teens. They seem very easy for teens to use, so it just makes it even better for them to have that vocabulary. Another activity in our program is what we call the red flags versus green flags activity. So this is an activity where we get students up and moving and we have them vote with their feet to decide if a scenario is a red flag or a green flag. So on the teen side, we focus a lot on technology specific scenarios. So really trying to help them identify what technology abuse can look like in relationships. And then for college, we focus on general healthy versus unhealthy characteristics. And we try and keep the scenarios pretty nuanced, like they could go one way or another to really help students think for themselves at what point would this become a red flag for me? So, at what point would conflict turn into fighting, and how would that impact me? So, they have some really good discussions with this activity and just really think deeper about those different characteristics that might happen in relationships.
And I didn't mention, but we have definitely incorporated technology situations and abuse in the news stories that we created. So we find that that is prevalent in among youth. So the next activity is that a safety plan. We actually hand out these little infographics and ask them to take the time to think of a trusted adult in their life, and we give them examples like an aunt, a coach, a parent, a neighbor's parent, to take the time to write down some ideas. We explain the idea of a code phrase to them, what that looks like, and how they would need to talk to their trusted adult and explain that they have a code phrase. And then we also want to get them thinking about where it's a safe place they could go if they walk to school or if they hang out somewhere after school, like would it be a friend's house or a gas station or something like that, that they could find a safe place.
And for the college side, we do have them fill out the same safety plan as the teens, but we also have the added emphasis of campus safety. You know, a lot of times people are eating, living, and working all in the same space. So it can be really helpful for college students to think of that safety plan. Like, for example, for trusted people, a lot of times they'll move away from their home. So it might be nice to have mom as a trusted person, but if you needed somebody there in the moment in case of emergency, who is that person in your college town that could help you? So we kind of add that added perspective to the safety plan. And then another thing we know is that the most dangerous time in a dating violence relationship is during or right after a breakup. So for college, we actually have them practice breakup planning as well. And this was something that was highly requested in our focus groups and surveys with college students, just knowing how to end that relationship safely. So we have a few three main points that we talk about with them, and they actually fill it out for the character of the story they went through, just to give them an example to use. So first, they talk about what red flags are present in the relationship, because even in unhealthy relationships, it's still common to miss your partner, maybe want to get back into that relationship. So hopefully identifying why they want to break up can help remind them in case they ever second guess themselves or consider getting back into that relationship. We also emphasize the importance of safety and having a plan for the specific breakup. So a lot of times there's pressure to break up in person, but we let students know that if they're scared how their partner will react, it's totally okay to break up over phone call or text, or even to have somebody else there with you to make sure that you're safe. We have them identify the people that are going to support them after the breakup. And then we also have them think about what technology their partner has access to, because a lot of times they might be sharing location, passwords, and they might even want to block the person altogether on social media just to have that separation. So, yeah, we kind of walk them through this breakup plan, because even if it's not necessarily an unhealthy relationship, breaking up can be hard. So just having that plan in place can help them get into relationships that are better for them.
Another activity that we do is we want to turn it to what does a healthy relationship look like? And we do talk to them about the teen equality wheel that shows some of those healthy characteristics like respect and honesty and moving at us the same pace. But we take some time to give them a minute to think about what they deserve in a relationship and what their partner or friend deserves in a relationship. Because we do mention a little bit earlier on in the program when we talk about the power and control wheels that does this just apply to romantic relationships? And we ask them for examples, and no, it doesn't. This can occur with any relationship. So we get them thinking about how they can apply this information, even if they aren't in a dating relationship right now. But then we have them kind of like pass these papers after they fill them out and read them out loud at the table. And we talk about the importance of identifying what these healthy characteristics are now so that they can look for those in their future friend or partner's life.
Yeah, and then with college, we kind of take it a step further. So they have their healthy characteristic, and then they actually have to identify what specific relationship that they want to apply it to and what specific action they're going to take to show that healthy characteristic. I like to emphasize with them to pick maybe a characteristic that they need to work on in relationships. So, like our example is talking about honesty. Like if you're living with your roommates, it's important to be honest when something bothers you to kind of prevent tension in that relationship. So really getting them to think about one specific characteristic that they want to improve in themselves to give to their other partner as well. And hopefully, if they write it down, they'll be more likely to actually do the actions and show that healthy characteristic. So that's one thing that we hope comes out of this activity.
I'd actually like to hear from you all, like what are some of your most important healthy characteristics that you look for in relationships with people, if you want to pop those in the chat. Because when we ask the high schoolers this, we get some really great, thoughtful answers sometimes that kind of blow us away. So yes, there's a question in the chat about if we include stories of middle school age children. Yes, we have middle school specific stories that are less intense that we present in the middle schools. Then the high school stories are a little bit more intense, and then the college student stories are even more intense. So we kind of gauge it that way. Great question. Okay, so another activity is the what we call the mud hole activity. And we take this silly little hand-drawn sketch and we ask them if the person who's stuck in the mud hole, which person is best equipped to help them get out, number 1, 2, or 3. And we ask them to hold up their fingers. And it's a little bit of a trick question. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up a second. we talk about the statistic that 75% of teens go to their peers for help regarding relationships, and that can be a heavy weight upon them. And so this is really to help them identify that there's more than just them. They may be the person in the pit, the mud hole, and not able to help their friend out that much without getting more stuck themselves. But there are other resources. Someone like number two could go and get help from like a parent or a teacher or someone. And then the person number three actually knows the person in the mud hole, can really offer that assistance to get them out. So each person may play a role, and we really encourage the teens to reach out to a trusted adult or someone like the advocate in the room.
Then for college, we put a big emphasis on supporting friends, especially since a lot of college students are no longer living with their family support systems. They might not have somebody checking in on them every day, and they're just trying to build those new connections in college. So we really try and dig deep into different ways that they can support friends. And so we start by going through these 5 tips on how to have a conversation with somebody about an unhealthy relationship. We talk about how to start the conversation. What are some good questions that you can ask to learn more? How can you respond in a validating way? And then we also go through different common phrases that kind of exhibit victim blaming without, it might not be obvious to the person that that statement is harmful. So we share those statements and kind of give a better example. So one of them is, why don't you just leave the relationship? I think that's something that a lot of people might say, but we kind of switch it to how can I support you or how can I help you, and kind of give them some examples of that. And then this little wheel on the PowerPoint, this will spin and students get to yell stop. And that's the scenario that they get to do. They apply these tips that they learn to an actual scenario from their character stories of somebody needing support, and they get to practice what they would say in that situation, which I think is very helpful for them because these are hard conversations to have. So just being able to practice can be really helpful. And now we just wanted to share a perspective from the students on why they really appreciated the ADMYRE program. So this student shared that when they experienced an unhealthy relationship, the people around them at the time didn't know how to support them, which made the experience more difficult and isolating. So having these trainings makes them happy and hopeful that this won't happen to others. So we're just really glad to see a positive response from students and see that even just raising awareness can help these situations.
Okay, you might be wondering, where can I find this program? So we wanted to share what our options. We are working to make this as accessible to as many people as possible. So we currently have 3 versions, 3 options, I should say. We can offer in person. If you're in Iowa, you can request. The 45-minute is only available for college, but 60 and 90 are both available as teen or college.
All right, so for this next question, we'd love for you guys to put in the chat and kind of get your perspective on how you think you can use ADMYRE in your own work day to day, and what that could look like. So I'll give you guys about a minute to write some ideas in the chat, and then we'll also share a few ideas that we had as well. You could also think about how it relates to the work that you do in child support. Even if you aren't able to fully use the program, how might the content help?
That's a great idea, the help in recognizing red flags. I like that. And actually our advocates use the story cards that way as well.
Yeah, having some peer educator presentations of the curriculum. We love that learning style. I feel like teens really get a lot from just hearing it from college students. Yeah, so kind of being aware can help you relate to the parents that you work with and connect them to resources. Yeah, and maybe even doing some outreach with the high schools in your area. Okay, well, keep putting your responses in the chat. We'll share a few ideas that we have for you all. So the first thing is just a greater awareness of the vocabulary, being able to use specific words to identify dating violence, whether you're talking with a client or somebody that just being able to provide that vocabulary for them. This has been a pretty great takeaway for the teens that go through the story. So having a better education on the vocabulary. The next one is understanding young people's experiences or even somebody going through a dating violence relationship. I think the stories really help build empathy and understanding for what that looks and feels like. And especially if you're working with young parents, knowing how a relationship like this might be affecting them, and having that empathy for them.
Yes, did you see the comment about in child support, they're already dealing with broken relationships? Which is very true, but I like how you're kind of connecting maybe some ideas from that breakup plan and separation that might help those people in the future find situations that could help them with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great connection. Which kind of relates to our next point of being able to advocate and provide resources for clients. We already shared the resource of your local coalition against domestic violence. That's a great group to turn to. They're always looking for ways to improve their outreach and get more involved in community organizations. And then, yeah, just being able to advocate for healthy relationships as well. And then it might come up as an idea for a future partnership. If you want to try and replicate maybe what we've done in Iowa and kind of give that youth prevention programming as an option, and just thinking of different ways to partner with youth prevention and dating violence awareness prevention.
And we're happy to help launch that or provide resources or answer questions to help replicate this other places if that's something you are wondering, how things happened, got started here, or what that looked like. So
Okay. So with that, we just wanted to leave some time if anybody had questions about the program, how we implement it, or anything for Rhonda and I that you wanted to learn more about related to ADMYRE. So you're welcome to put those in the chat, or if you want to unmute and talk, ask your question, that would be all right too.
Hi, my name's Brandon Glover. I'm with Washington State Division of Child Support. I just had a question about how you folks work with your state child support agency. Is there a connection, or is it something that already exists or you're working on?
So thank you, Brandon. We have our contract manager is actually the main person who because Hannah and I are both at Iowa State University. So but our contract manager, Kate, is actually the one who is most directly involved in that relationship and would be happy to answer what more specific questions that way. I know that originally this started out as a partnership with that PILE program that we mentioned at the start that we're both part of, and that was an initiative by the Iowa Attorney General's office partnering with Iowa Child Support and providing like lesson plans for teachers in the state to present this material, and it's really evolved from that point. Can you clarify? Do you have any other follow-up questions related to that?
Well, thank you for the clarification. As a child support agency in Washington, we have had some initiatives and grants in the past where we have gone out to high schools and presented information. But this would be a relatively new concept. I'm not sure how we would roll it out, but we've got Wiskative. We work very, very closely with them. So I'm sure you know a lot of our partners here, and I can follow up with our contacts and see if that's something that they would be interested in helping us with, or if they already do, but I appreciate your response.
Yes. So actually, we do have a relationship with Washington State, and a number of years ago, we did a train the trainer program with them, not for ADMYRE, but for the other program that we work with, which is preparing individuals for adulthood and life, or PILE. And we did a virtual train the trainer with them on how to present those modules, and they have been they were presenting them in the high school classrooms. So there was a bit of turnover with the group we were working with, but I could potentially get your email from Jenny and see if I could connect you with those people, with that group, if you're interested.
Okay, I'll just pop it in the chat here, and if you have anything, you're sure welcome to forward it on.
Okay. Perfect. No, there is not a charge for Train the Trainer. We would be happy to also work with you, Paula, on putting something together like that. We would be very happy to do that. I mean, we are actually doing an in-person Train the Trainer in October, but we would be happy to work with you to arrange something like that. No charge. All of our materials is free of charge.
Do you know if that was ADMYRE at the WCSEC conference, Rhonda, or was that in their shoes in 2023? There's a question about that in the chat.
I see that now. Somebody answered in Portland.
Yeah, I curated the session and was there. I remember it was wonderful. It was very impactful.
Okay. Yes, that would have been our coworker Joanne who was presenting that. Yeah. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. And I love these connections that we have even with Washington and through WCSEC as well. Trying to see if we've missed any questions or comments to address in the chat. I think we've got them all.
Okay, well, if you guys do have any additional questions, we're going to throw our contact information up here. The QR code will go to our link tree if you want to follow the social media pages and kind of see what we're doing with ADMYRE. And then that email is a good email for both Rhonda and I if you have any questions about middle school, high school, or college ADMYRE. And we also just wanted to say thank you for joining us today and learning a little bit more about preventing dating violence. And we're just really excited to be able to share that information with you all.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda and Hannah. This was a really great presentation, and based on all of the engagement from everybody, it seems like it was really useful and relevant information. And so, if anybody has any questions later on, I know I'm super guilty all the time of thinking of questions in like the middle of the night. If that is you also, you're always welcome to reach out to me and I can put you in touch with Hannah and Rhonda, and happy to forward your contact information if needed. But I so appreciate all of you for joining us today for this conference call. And thank you again so much to both of you for presenting on this great program that you're able to implement throughout the state. I know it's really impactful for a lot of our youth and emerging adults. So
Thank you for having us, Jenny, and we really appreciate all the participation from you all, and hopefully we'll be able to connect and assist in the future.